The Lighthouse Keeper's Breakfast. Again, this is one of the stories from the Lighthouse Keeper's collection, which I thought you would enjoy. Mr. and Mrs. Grinling lived with their cat Hamish in a little white cottage perched high on the cliffs. Mr. Grinling was a lighthouse keeper. By day and night, with his assistant Sam, he lovingly tended the light. One Wednesday morning, when Sam was polishing, he noticed a tiny inscription right at the top of the lighthouse. "Well, well," he said to himself, "just fancy that." "Our lighthouse is 200 years old this year," he told everyone. "We should celebrate," said Mrs. Grinling. "Maybe some presents," said Mr. Grinling. "A fresh coat of red and white paint." "And a party," said Mrs. Grinling. "How about a fancy dress?" suggested Sally de la Croissant, the baker. "Something to do with the sea," said Jason, the postman. "I've got a lovely octopus suit." We can use my old sailing ship," roared Admiral Fleetwicks. "I'll moor her out in the bay." "Can it be an all-night party with a birthday breakfast?" asked the children. "It's an extremely important occasion." And everyone agreed that Mr. and Mrs. Grinling should be the very special guests. It was so difficult to choose the best fancy dress. "Shall I wear the shark suit?" asked Mr. Grinling. "Could I be a mermaid?" wondered Mrs. Grinling. But when they discovered the pirate costumes, their minds were made up. "All my life I've yearned to be a pirate," sighed Mrs. Grinling. "To spit and swear and roam the 7 seas and search for treasure on Treasure Island," added Mr. Grinling. "We'll be splendid pirates," cried Mrs. Grinling, as she swashed and buckled round the room. "Hattie and Herbert, the scourge of the 7 seas." "Oh, ah," said Mr. Grinling, and he swashed and buckled too. "Perhaps Hamish could be our pirate cat," suggested Mrs. Grinling, but Hamish had very different ideas. Whenever Mrs. Grinling wanted him to try on his pirate costume, Hamish disappeared. "Drat that cat!" she exclaimed. "Where does he go these days?" The Grinlings practised being pirates at every opportunity. "Here's your toast, me old one-eyed beauty." "Oh, ah." "Avast, me hearties, let's stir the crow's nest stew." But Mr. Grinling's cutlass caused all sorts of difficulties. "Shiver me timbers! Careful, Captain! Yoggle the yardarm!" Clunk. "I do want to be a pirate," he said sadly. "I'm just not very good at it. Perhaps I should have gone as a shark after all." Mrs. Grinling quite frightened Sam and the seagulls with her cursing and swearing. "Gracious me! Hattie Grinling, I don't believe I'm hearing such things. I'm off to the village." "Ha ha! Thank goodness, only a week to go to the sea party. The Grinlings are driving me mad with their pirate antics." "Oh, so they're dressing up as pirates, are they?" On the night of the party, the Grinlings rowed out towards the party ship. At first its lights shone clearly across the water, but gradually they dimmed and soon they vanished altogether. "What can have happened, Mrs. G?" said Mr. Grinling. We can't be lost." The waves slapped against the little boat. It was darker than Mr. Grinling had ever seen it. And then, as the lighthouse flashed across the bay, "Look, Mr. G!" exclaimed Mrs. Grinling. "Someone to rescue us." A speedboat swished in beside them, nearly swamping the little dinghy. 3 pirates leapt across the bow and thrust their shining cutlasses in the air. "Oar!" they roared and rampaged around the dinghy. Mrs. Grinling was delighted. "Real pirates," she whispered to Mr. Grinling, and she forgot all about the sea party. "Oar!" growled the fierce pirate. "We be pirates, and this be our pirate patch. We're on the lookout for likely new recruits." "Oh, yes," exclaimed Mrs. Grinling. "We'd love to be pirates. Yo-ho-ho and a bottle of rum." Mr. Grinling waved his cutlass rather feebly. The pirates appeared rather surprised. "Of course, you have to show us that you can be pirates," snarled the smallest and smelliest pirate. "You have to pass the incredibly difficult pirate tests." Mr. Grinling wasn't sure about the pirate tests. "Okay, lads," shouted the fierce pirate. "We'll blindfold 'em and gag 'em and take 'em back to the captain. She'll soon find out if they're made of the proper pirate material. You all know what she's like." The pirate captain was a particularly nasty-looking piece of work. She had black teeth and smelt of rotten fish and seaweed. A grubby white parrot clung to her shoulder. "Right, me hearties, what have we here?" She peg-legged around the Grinlings. "So you want to join our pirate crew?" "Oh, yes, please," said Mrs. Grinling. "Definitely," agreed Mr. Grinling. "Well, you look like pirates, and you smell like pirates. but you have to pass the 6 pirate tests before you can be pirates. Are you ready? Asked the captain. So what comes first, me hearties? The swearing test, shouted the pirates. Mrs. Grinling swore loudly and long. The parrot covered his ears. Mr. Grinling thought for a while. Blithering bombollards, he muttered at last. The pirates shook their heads. Now the sleeping in a hammock in a force 9-gale test. Rock that ship, me bully boys and girls. Mrs. Grinling held tightly to the hammock sides and smiled happily. Mr. Grinling bounced right out of his hammock and was seasick several times. The pirates groaned. The Jolly Roger flag test, shouted Captain Boswell. Just a quick climb to the crow's nest. Mrs. Grinling scampered up the rope ladder. At the top she not only hoisted the flag, but waved her cutlass. Shiver me timbers, shouted the pirates. Mr. Grinling closed his eyes as he started to climb. Don't look down, he muttered to himself. Think of Hamish and Sam. Think of nice things to eat. Peach surprise and iced sea biscuits. Think of... Ah! He fell into the barrel of foul-smelling water. I'm so sorry, said the captain. They're very polite for pirates, spluttered Mr. Grinling to Mrs. Grinling. The pirate test number 4, announced Captain Boswell. Finding the treasure. Roared all the pirates. Here's the map, said Captain Boswell. There's lovely treasure hidden on our ship. You've got 10 minutes to find it. Ooh-ah, shouted the Grinlings, and off they raced. Outside the loo. Off we go, Hattie, not much time. This is empty, nothing here. Up we go. Quickly, Hattie. Oh dear. Herbert, I've cracked the code. When all seems lost, all can be won. A surprise waits under somebody's. Not behind the curtains. Nothing under the captain's pillow. This map's so difficult. Not in here, Hattie. Can't see a thing in here, Herbert. 10 seconds to go, Herbert. They found the treasure chest under the bottom of a very small pirate. Open sesame, shouted the pirates. The chest was big enough for only 1 jewel and 2 pieces of 8. We're a little short of treasures at the moment, explained the captain. No decent raids lately. And now the most dangerous and most terrifying and most dastardly test of them all. Eating pirate food, shouted the pirates. Eating, said Mr. Grinling happily. Now eating is something I can do. Some of the smaller pirates sniggered. Captain Boswell laid out the food. 2 maggots and a weevil wriggled across the biscuit. Mrs. Grinling turned quite green, but Mr. Grinling ate it, weevils, maggots and all. Hurrah, shouted the pirates. And now it's number 6, the final test. If you pass this, you can join our pirate gang. Tell 'em, me bouncing buccaneers. Walking the plank, cried the pirates. Oh, said Mrs. Grinling. Dearie me, said Mr. Grinling. The water below looked smooth, dark and menacing. Mr. Grinling wished he was wearing the shark costume. Do you think I could ask for armbands? He whispered. Mrs. Grinling looked at the pirates' faces and shook her head. Is that a shark I see? We've always wanted to be pirates, Mr. G, she said. We aren't afraid of a bit of water, are we? Goodness no, said Mr. Grinling, but his knees knocked and his tummy felt all wobbly like jelly. Ready, he said, and held his nose. Steady, said Mrs. Grinling, and she closed her eyes. Just a minute, said Mr. Grinling, letting go of his nose. Something's amiss here. Who ever heard of new pirates walking the plank? We could drown before we've done any pirating. Suddenly the pirates pulled off their disguises. Surprise, surprise, they shouted. The Grinlings were so astounded, they nearly fell into the water. Jason the postman, exclaimed Mr. Grinling. Admiral Fleetwicks, cried Mrs. Grinling. And Sally de la Croissant, they both said together. We heard how you longed to be pirates, she explained, so we planned a pirate experience. We had to be nasty so you'd think we were real. We certainly did, said Mr. Grinling, as he mopped his brow. The lighthouse beamed its last light across the bay. It's party time, called Jason the postman. He picked up his fiddle and started to play. May I have the pleasure, Pirate Herbert? Asked Mrs. Grinling. Oh, Pirate Hattie, smiled Mr. Grinling, and they all danced until they could dance no more. Sun's up, called Sally de la Croissant. Time for birthday breakfast. Mrs. Grinling looked a bit worried. We can't have the party without Hamish or Sam, said Mr. Grinling. They're coming, shouted the children. Just in time for the food, said Sam as he climbed onto the deck. He placed a large wicker basket at the Grinlings' feet and carefully opened the lid. Out jumped Hamish and Mrs. Hamish and 4 little Hamishes. Now that's what I call real treasure, smiled Mr. Grinling.